All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first family engagement series for Alexandria City Public Schools. My name is Krishna Leva, and I'm the Family and Community Engagement Manager for Alexandria City Public Schools.
እንዴት አመሻችሁ? እንዴት ዋላችሁ? እኔ ክርስና እባላለሁኝ የአሌክዛንድሪያ ፐብሊክ ስኩል የቤተሰብ ግንኙነት አመራር ላይ የምሰራ ነኝ።
Buenas tardes, Miss Lelia le da la bienvenida a esta reunión y es la coordinadora del grupo de servicios comunitarios y familias.
I will now let the interpreters explain to the parents how to connect so they can access interpretation.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Pedro, yo soy su intérprete que hablaré en español. Si es tan amable, en la parte inferior de la derecha hay símbolo de un globo blanco, oprímalo. Una vez esté ahí, busca el español y va a entender mi interpretación. Muchas gracias.
For interpretation in Amharic, they can go to the globe and look at where it says Amharic, and they can actually
አማርኛ ለሚፈልግ አማርኛን እንነካለን። ዓለም የምትመስለው ቅርጽ ላይ ሄዳችሁ ነው ያንን የምትነኩት።
And the same for Arabic. If you want interpretation in Arabic, please go to the globe that is at the bottom of the screen and press it so you can hear this presentation in Arabic. All right. So thank you so much. And today I have the pleasure to have someone who I know from previous work, but also that many of you know. And I'm super glad to be sharing this space with her today. She will be talking to all of you about learning and creating ideal spaces for visual learning and minimizing distractions from video games and other screens. As we know, virtual learning could be challenging sometimes for some of the families. So I can tell as a mom, it was really hard to actually help my own children. So we understand that, and that's the reason why we are putting out a series of family engagement workshops to help families understand the new Virtual Plus model. And I want to let you know that next week on Tuesday, September 1st at noon, we will have our Connecting to Class with your ACPS Chromebook. So if your child is in second grade all the way through 12th grade, we'll be able to actually explain to you how to access, how to connect to the Wi-Fi, and
እንግዲህ
answer
በሚቀጥለው
any
ሳምንት
questions for
እንገልጽላችኋለን
you.
ለልጆቹ እንዴት ማድረግ እንዳለባቸው
Also, we will
ከኮምፒውተሮቻቸው ጋር
have
እንዴት
the
ኮኔክት
Food
ማድረግ
for Thought
እንዳለባቸው
on
እንነጋገራለን።
September 1st at 4 p.m.
በሰፕተምበር አንድ
And that
ሜይ
is
ደግሞ
all
10 ሰዓት
about
ላይ
meal access
አለን
and our new digital
እንገናኛለን።
pass.
ስለ
And
አዲሱ
at 4
የዲጂታል
o'clock
ፓስ ነው
and on
የምንነጋገረው።
September 3rd about attendance. So many families have been asking about the new attendance. Is it going to be taking attendance? How is it going to work out? Well, on September 3rd at noon, we will have all your questions and you'll be able to ask questions live as well.
ጥያቄም ካላችሁ
And
ደግሞ በዛ
now I have the pleasure to present Ann Dolan, who knows about relationships between parents and children and how to create stress-free and make sure that you can set up your virtual learning at home. She has more than 25 years combined of teaching, tutoring, and consulting experience. And her tutors at Educational Connection have been helping kids overcome obstacles to improve their confidence, grades, and study habits. what once she started as an hour of tutoring at her kitchen table has grown to a team of over 100 educators throughout the Northern Virginia area. She also is the author of 3 books. And when she's not helping with parents and kids, you can find her at WTOP Radio as their educational expert. I would like to now leave you with Miss Ann Dolan. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Krishna. It's great to see you and be a part of the webinar today. So let's talk today about virtual learning and how to put in place some practical strategies that can make this whole environment of at-home learning work better for you. So you may know that this is going to be recorded. Don't worry if you miss something, that's okay. We'll also have a Q&A at the end for about 20 minutes. I have an ebook called Homeschooling During COVID-19 that you can access by texting 55444. And in the message space, just type in homeschool. And this is a great resource for parents that want the basics on helping their child. And I have a brand new ebook that's coming out all on virtual learning, probably on Monday. So if you text me today, I'll make sure you get this one and then the new one that will come out next week. And again, it's 55444 and just type in the words homeschool. So today we're going to talk about 6 main things that are all really important for getting our kids set up. We'll talk about routines and expectations, creating the ideal virtual learning space, keeping kids focused while they're online, encouraging our kids to stay involved and to ask questions of their teachers, how to work from home when your kids are also learning virtually, and then lastly, how to stay positive and preserve our relationships with our kids when all of this can feel so stressful. So, Krishna, I'd love to start out with our first poll and find out from all the listeners about their child's grade. So what is your child's grade? Please type it into the box that you see in your screen. And this is important so that I can see what grade level listeners have, and then I can modify this presentation to your grade level. So just take a moment right now to click the button and let us know what grade your child is in or will be going into this fall. Kanika, are we all set with the poll?
We are all set. It looks like more than half of the parents who are logged in now are pre-K through 2nd grade parents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's the majority that we have here. We also have 3rd through 5th grade parents making a strong showing with 22%, and as well as a good deal of high school parents, with about 18% of those families representing here.
Okay, oh wow, I love this graph. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's super helpful. Well, I have to tell you, if you have a really young child in grades K to 2, you've come to the right place. If you can set up some basic structure now, it's really gonna help you as your kids get older. But if you have an older child, don't worry. If you feel like, oh, this is so hard, I wanna teach you a couple of tips and tricks today that will make everything a lot easier. So let's talk about the basics and setting up a routine. You know, I kind of think of routines as being on autopilot. If we do the same thing day in and day out, we don't have to think about it all the time. For example, if we always have a place to put our keys, we don't have to look around for our keys all the time because there's always a place for them. So it kind of puts us on autopilot in the morning when we're getting ready to go to work. Well, those were the good days when we drove to work. Now, not so much. But I think you know what I mean. If we have a routine for our kids that they follow the same plan every day, it makes life just so much easier. I kind of think of it like the 6 Ps. This is an old military saying. Prior proper planning prevents poor performance. In this virtual learning space that we're in now, it's going to take more of a parent's effort up front at the beginning of the year to make sure it's easier down the road. I remember when I first started teaching in Fairfax County, and my principal said, you know, Anne, it's easier to be strict in the beginning and then loosen up rather than starting out really loose with not lots of expectations and try to rein kids in later. And I think that's true now. If we can set our kids up for some basic routines and have some rules, it will make life easier. So we want to start that out by just having a frank discussion with our kids and recognizing the situation. We might want to say something like, I've noticed. I love using the words, I've noticed. They're kind of like magic words because we're not saying like, listen, Johnny, you better be more organized, or you need to get your stuff ready this year. Instead, we're saying, I've noticed we do better with routines, the same schedule every day. Or I've noticed life seems easier for us when we have a plan in the morning. So one thing that I would recommend is that you start out by talking to your child about their schedule. You might say, let's talk about what your schedule is going to be this school year. If they already have their schedule, you could say, can you bring that up on your laptop? Or can you print it out so we can go over it together? You might then say, based on what you know about yourself, what would be a good time to get up every morning? How much time do you think you need in the morning to get ready? You're setting up a routine so that kids are getting up the same time every day and they're online when they need to be. That's better than trying to drag them out of bed in the morning. When they have an expectation and they've had say in it, it makes life easier. I'd also recommend that once a week, typically on Sunday nights, talking about your child's weekly schedule in advance. Whether you have a first grader or a 10th grader, it's going to be the same. You're going to say, let's talk about the week ahead. Let's look at Monday and what you have. How about Tuesday? You might ask, do you have any big assignments coming up? You're basically taking about 15 minutes once a week to preview what the week is going to be like. And then, and that's the main thing you want to do, there's a quick meeting each morning. So before school starts, you might ask questions like, oh, tell me about your schedule today. What do you have first and then second? You might also ask, when do you have breaks? We'll talk about breaks in a second because they're important, but they can also derail kids. What will you do during your break time? Then you might even ask, let's talk about what you're going to be doing after school today. So just quickly, you're opening up the dialogue first thing in the morning. So let's talk about those breaks. Breaks are important, but they can also cause a lot of mayhem in families. I suspect that this year, virtual instruction will look like this. A group lesson where the class is in the room together, online. Then teachers are going to assign something for the student to do independently. And then they might come back together shortly, and then kids will have a break. It's these break times that we want to think ahead about, because this is when it could go well or not so well. For most kids, even for little kids, their natural inclination during a break is to run and turn on the TV, or to play a video game, or to create a TikTok video, or to scroll through their pictures on Instagram. But all of these things are highly stimulating. And when these things occur, the brain is pushing out this pleasure chemical. It's called dopamine. And when this happens and you get this huge rush of dopamine, your brain wants more and more of it. So when you stop doing something that's highly stimulating, your brain says, hey, what's up? I want more of that. It feels good. That's why it's hard for kids to put down video games when they're in the moment. So instead of these types of things during the school day, I would encourage something less stimulating that produces lower dopamine. So these are engaging activities, but they're not addicting. Maybe like doing homework that they might have online, because learning online is fine. Not all screens are created equal. Maybe reading even a book online. doing arts and crafts, working on a puzzle, building with Legos, playing with friends. These are all things that would be good for break activities during the day. So let's shift gears. We've talked about a schedule. We've talked about what kids can do during breaks. Let's talk about setting up a space for virtual learning. So we have our next poll. Tanika, what's our next question? Great.
So yes, our next poll question is, how are you feeling about setting up a space for virtual learning in your home?
Awesome. So our answers are, I don't know where to start, or I have a space already set up, or I have an idea, but I can still use some tips. I'm curious what parents will say about this one. I talked to lots of parents, and some say, oh, I'm all set. And some say, oh, you need to have a space set up. So people are really feeling out what they're going to do at this point.
So we're just going to give it another 15 seconds or so, and then I'll post the results.
Awesome. And I think this topic is really interesting. I was talking to a couple of parents recently, and they wanted to set up, one mom actually has 4 kids, and she said in the spring, it was kind of like loosey-goosey. She didn't know how long it would last. So one of her kids was on the couch, the other was at the kitchen table, the third was in their bedroom. It was just kind of like all over the place. And so this time she said she's gonna buy desks, but when she went online to buy them, it was hard to find them because a lot of them had been sold out. So here's what parents said. 10% said, I'm not sure where to start. 33% said, I have a space already set up. And then 57% said, I have an idea, but I can use some tips. All right, well, you've come to the right place. So thank you, everybody, for sharing your insight. There's 2 options that parents have. So this mom in particular with the 4 kids, what she decided to do was to get them all small desks, and she actually had these old card tables in the basement that she dragged up. And she has 4 separate spaces set up. So here's one option, kind of like what this mom did. It's an individual desk or a table for one child. Ideally, the space should be quiet, but not too quiet. So you wouldn't want to put your 2nd grader upstairs, squirreled away in a bedroom that nobody uses, or set aside where it's very isolating. That might be too quiet for a young child because they'll come out of the room, they'll ask questions, it's just too isolating. Also, ideally, it shouldn't be their bedroom unless it has to be, because often bedrooms are very distracting for kids. So the space might be maybe your dining room or the kitchen area, somewhere that you're kind of nearby, but it's not too quiet. If you have an individual space set up for your child, it needs to have a solid Wi-Fi connection. So make sure it's in a place in the house that's helpful. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, the City of Alexandria can help you with a hotspot. And I know Krishna will talk about that again at the end. But involve your child in the setup. You know, don't make it your job. Let your child come in on it, set their table up, and make it fun. All right, so here's option 2. Option 2 is probably more realistic if you have lots of kids. You might not have space for everybody to have their individual area, but you may have one table where you can put 2 or 3 kids at. And if that's the case, ideally you want some type of visual divider so they're not driving each other crazy. So there's 2 things you can get. 1, find an old cardboard box, let them fashion it into a little divider, like a testing carrel for themselves. Or you can go online and you can buy these on Amazon or a school supply store. They're about $12 each, and kids can create their own. You can also go to Michael's and buy a poster project setup, and they're not very expensive, but you can see here how this student decorated it herself. And I love this because she created her schedule. She has a place for her materials, her pencils. It's just great. So allow your child to set this up too. Here's some other examples, and you can tell these are done by a girl because I don't know if a boy's would look so fancy. But the key is to make sure this is where your child goes every day. Their brain needs to think, this is where I go to do schoolwork. It's not a place to play video games or to have your phone and be clicking away. It's really where you go to focus and you do schoolwork. It's your designated workspace. And I'd also encourage you at the end of the day to say to your child, school isn't done until your DWS, your designated workspace, is cleaned up, is tidied up. Just like in school, they don't just walk out of the classroom at the end of the day, leave their desk a complete mess, stuff on the floor, and go to the bus. No, the teacher says, you need to straighten up your desk, clean up your floor, and get packed up before you leave for the day. Same should be the case at home. Other things that you need. Make sure your child's laptop is at their eye level, not like this, where their head is constantly down and they're looking down. That's hard on your neck over time. Make sure they have a comfortable chair. And if you've got a really antsy kid, a swivel chair is good, even an exercise ball chair. Every child needs headphones so they can hear their teacher, but it's not distracting to other people. I also recommend just a note card where they can jot down any websites they need to access. I found in the spring that many students the teachers had them going to many different places and they couldn't remember their login. So they need to know the URL, the website, their username and their password for all the places that they need to access. And then lastly, if you can find an analog clock, that's a clock with hands in your house, put it in your child's study area. There's research that shows kids have better time management skills when they use an analog clock rather than a digital clock, because they can see the hand moving and that gives them a better sense of elapsed time. Other things, kids need to keep track of the assignments that they have. Ideally, they should be getting their work done in the school day so they don't have homework later in the afternoon and evenings. They need to be writing down every day what they're supposed to be doing. So they need some type of student planner. Many kids will get them from their school. Some will have one left over from last year. You can go on Amazon and you can buy one. You can even just get a regular little notebook. It can be blank where they just jot down their assignments. Doesn't need to be fancy. They need a place to write down their work. Secondly, they need a place to put their things. It used to be, especially with middle and high school kids, I'd encourage parents to have a separate binder for each class, but that is not the case anymore. Kids don't have that many papers. And now in this virtual environment, they will have very few. But the thing is, they need an organized system. So this is an example of a super basic, very inexpensive accordion folder. It basically opens up and you can see different tabs for each section. Each tab should be labeled with each subject. And when your child gets a paper from that particular subject, it goes into the back side of that section so everything's chronologically organized. It can also fit composition books, interactive notebooks. You can really actually put a lot of stuff into this accordion. I also love kids to have colored pencils. I'll show you why in a second. And an extra bonus, kind of a fun thing to have, but not necessary, is an erasable highlighter. I like highlighters, especially girls love highlighters. Some kids like them, some kids don't. I find them to be helpful in making things a little bit more visual. And now the latest products are actually erasable highlighters, which are really cool. So let's talk a little bit about focus. And I'm wondering if we could pull up our next question, Tamika, to find out if this is an issue for any families.
And
Yeah.
we also have some live questions.
Sure.
Well,
Would you
the
like to
poll
ask
thumbs
them?
up. Oh, the poll is up.
Okay, great.
We have one. We have several, but this parent says the schedule release for kindergarten has the kids engaging in live instructions for up to 3.5 hours a day. For many of us, it was a struggle to even get through the 20-minute story time. How do you prevent kids from disengaging? And if they do, because um, do not get anything from online instruction, will they be penalized?
I hear you. I mean, having kids, first of all, I do not think that teachers are going to have kids on Zoom for 3.5 hours or whatever their online platform is. It's not appropriate for kids at this age. I don't think it's going to happen. They're going to have breaks in between. There will be downtime because it's not realistic for kids to sustain their focus for 3.5 hours. Most younger kids, I agree with you, that 20 minutes seems to be the time that's about right for them. So if you're concerned about it, I would message the teacher if you have your teacher placement right now and ask, how will you be dividing that time? I think what teachers are also concerned about is having too much downtime where it's unsupervised. So it could be that 3.5 hours is also some independent time, but it's not necessarily that the child will have to be engaged. We all know that when we're on video too much, it feels draining, even to us as adults. So I do think that there will be a little bit more downtime. During that downtime that your child has, I would encourage it, this especially goes for older kids, they have to get up. They need to stand up, walk away from their computer and readjust their brain so that they're not zoomed out by the end of the day. So that means if they can, definitely getting up, walking around, getting a snack, getting a drink. But also if they can go outside, that's even better. We know through lots of research that when we look at different environments for homework, your brain actually retains most when you're outdoors. So if we can get our kids outdoors, they don't need to be really learning anything, but just as a break, that's going to be helpful. So I would talk to the teacher first. I don't think that that is going to be the expectation. So interesting. 78% say focus is an issue for their child. And I completely understand that. You know, this is what I'm hearing from, I talk to parents every day. They call our office looking for help for their kids. And this is what they are most concerned about. Oh my gosh, they say the same thing as that parent just said. He can barely pay attention for 10 minutes. How is this going to work from 9 to 3 o'clock? So let's talk a little bit about what focus can look like in your family and what you can do. First of all, if your child is in the expectation that the teacher is online delivering direct instruction, looking at the kids in the room, and they're having to participate, I found great value when they have a fidget toy in hand. So a fidget toy is like anything that they can play with that's tactile, not like a doll if they're in first grade or something that's going to be super distracting, but something that allows them to have some type of pressure on their hands. Often when we see kids that are really distractible, and you know if you have one because this is your kid who's spinning around in the swivel chair, playing with their hair, maybe chewing their sleeve, you know, batting the table, tapping their foot, they're always doing something. The reason kids do that, especially in elementary school, is they're craving sensory stimulation. And it's our natural inclination as a parent to say, stop that, put that down, stop playing with that, just focus. But actually, their brain needs something tactile, so give it to them, but in the form of a fidget. So it can be like a spinner, which a lot of kids have. It could be like good old-fashioned silly putty. The picture on the left, these are mesh bags with a marble inside, and actually these are the #1 sellers on Amazon. They're just super, I wish I invented this. They're super simple fidget toys that you just move the marble around with your hand. The one on the bottom is called Cool Cats. It's just like kind of like Play-Doh, but it's harder so you can't pull it apart. Wiggle feet is something that your kids can put their feet in to kind of make it a little bit more stimulating when they're sitting for a long period of time. But all these things have been proven by research to help kids focus. So I would let your child have a fidget toy during that instructional time. that the parent mentioned. Now, if you have an older student and they're in a content classroom, like they're in social studies or they're in English or they might be in science, something like that, and they need to pay attention and ideally take notes, doodle notes are like the modern version of the old-fashioned note-taking techniques where kids just had like a blank piece of lined paper and a notebook and they just had to, you know, write down what they had to know. Not anymore. So doodle notes are super cool because it's already a pre-constructed template that's broken up into sections. And it's neat because, for example, if you look at the very bottom right, you can see a blank one. The one at the very bottom right, the one kind of to the left corner, you can see how it's blank, but you can put notes that are specific to certain sections. For example, causes of the Civil War or vocabulary that you need to know on that line section. You can get these for free if you go to doodlenotes.org. You do have to pay for some, but the basic ones are free. And then one of my favorite websites is called teacherspayteachers.com. And in the search button, search section, you can type in free doodle notes and it will give you free templates that you can then print out. So I would recommend if your child has a hard time with focus, that they have doodle notes in hand and they can take notes. The reason is we know our brain likes to organize things visually. It's easier for us to take notes when we have a template. Secondly, there's research that shows people who doodle actually pay better attention than people that just listen. I remember when I was a teacher, when I saw a kid in my class doodling, I thought they weren't paying attention. And I would say things like, Nicole, pay attention, put your pencil down, look up here. It didn't really occur to me that actually she was paying attention. It was her way of keeping focused. So this is one option to help kids during instructional time. The other thing I would recommend is make sure, especially if you have a kid who loves their laptop, make sure all those open windows at the bottom are completely gone when they start instruction. They don't need to have anything else open. They don't need YouTube or anything else. Get rid of those things. Also, if they can put their phone in another room, if they're old enough to have a phone, it should not be in their learning area. They can use the phone on breaks if they have to, just to text their friends, but ideally, that's not where they're learning. Phones are super distracting to kids. If this is independent time where they have to do certain things and get them done, there's two other ways that you can approach that. One is to encourage kids to keep a little to-do list. I have to do. I have to research, I have to plan, and then I have to write my essay. And anytime they have a visual of what they have to do, it's easier to get stuff done. The other thing I really love is timers. I'm a huge fan of timers. I think they're like magic for kids that have a hard time with distractions. So when they have to do their own work, if you leave them alone, say they have to do something that takes 30 minutes, you come back an hour later and they've done like 2 minutes worth of work. I kind of equate that to the Super Bowl. You know, you watch the Super Bowl and it's on for 4 hours, but they only play the game for an hour. Some of our kids are like that. It should take them a very little amount of time to do something. They're in there forever. But a timer helps because you set a timer for a very short amount of time, say 10 minutes. I call this the tolerable 10. The idea is anybody can tolerate something for 10 minutes. You set the timer for 10 minutes, and we teach kids this all the time. We teach them to say to themselves, I'm gonna work as hard as I can, as best as I can, focus as much as I can, just for 10 minutes. And when the 10 minutes is up, I'll take a break or I can keep on going. Chances are they can keep on going, but they need that sense of urgency in the timer. So we've talked about routines, setting up a space. We've talked about focus issues and engagement. And then that really goes to my next thing, which is encouraging kids to ask questions. Even though we do all these things and we equip our kids for success, if they're not engaged with the teacher, and if the teacher doesn't get any questions from your child, she's going to assume that he has it. In a typical classroom, she can walk around and see, oh, you know, John's off task. Come on, John, let's go. Let's get busy right now, okay? And he's back on task. Not so much in a virtual classroom. That's why this is so important. And actually, this is the #1 thing teachers report that can make a difference in engagement of their students. So I mentioned that kids are going to have lessons. The teacher is going to say, any questions? And then they're going to be going off to do their independent work or their homework. That's when you want to make sure your child can ask a question. So you want to encourage them, you know, do you understand everything? Is there something that maybe you're unsure about? And they can use the raise hand feature. They can private chat their teacher if they're embarrassed to ask a question. And if they're super, super hesitant, you can encourage, if they're old enough, them to send an email to their teacher. I like this approach because if kids get a positive response from their teacher, which they will, so if they say something like, I'm really having a hard time with dividing fractions and I'm stuck on #4, and the teacher writes back and says, oh, John, don't worry about it. I've got you covered. Here's how you do #4, or let's talk about #4 after class today. They get a positive response. They're more likely to ask questions and reach out in the future. If you have a really young child, like a kindergarten or a first grade, a second grade, they can't write an email yet, you can email the teacher on their behalf and say, I've noticed John's having difficulty with #3 and with regrouping numbers, whatever it might be. And that way you're using those magic words, I've noticed again, which are helpful, and you've mentioned to her that he's having difficulty. So you're all on the same page. Okay, so let's shift to working from home. You know, if you have another adult in the home, which is really makes it a lot easier, you can set up block scheduling. So you can say things like, look, I've got the kids from 8 to 9:30. You have them from 9:30 to 10 to 11. So they always have a go-to parent. However, that may not be the case, and you're on for the whole time. And you're not only trying to do your job, but you've also got kids that need your help too. And that's why mornings are so important. I mentioned earlier, taking that 5 minutes before class starts and saying to your child, tell me about your day. In that time, once it's time for school to start, you really need to be there to make sure your child is logged on, they're online, they've started with their teacher, and they're good to go. It's going to take more time in the morning. But as the day goes on, you may need to have times when you can help, but also times when you might not be able to help because you're on a conference call. You've got a deadline that you have to get, something that you have to get done. And for that reason, I recommend using another visual. And this is the red green light system. So you can say, look, when I have the green construction paper or a green Sharpie at my desk or a green cup, that means you come in and ask me anything you need. But if I have red, red means that I can't be bothered right now because I'm on an important call and come back a little bit later. Those types of visuals are much better than saying, hey, Susie, I'm on a conference call. Because anytime we're talking to our kids a lot, especially when they're young, it's in one ear and out the other, and they forget. And then lastly, I think probably the most important thing is that we want to keep all of this positive, even when it's feeling stressful for everybody involved, not just for us as parents. It's stressful and feels isolating for our kids, and it's also very difficult for teachers. So I would recommend focusing on completion with your kids. That means making sure they're logged on the best you can, making sure they're engaged and they get their work done. Don't worry if they have a word misspelled, if they don't have enough adjectives in their spelling sentence, if they have a math problem wrong. It's honestly not important. Let the teacher be the judge of the quality, but as a parent, we just want to make sure they do the work. For older kids, we cannot micromanage older kids. It's just too difficult because they have their own way of doing things. But we can use the blind eye strategy so that we're kind of like a team and there's trade-offs. So you could say to your child, look, I'm willing to turn a blind eye with you staying up late at night watching Netflix if you're willing to do these two things each day. So it might be that they're willing to get up at 8 o'clock and be online on time at 9 o'clock for their first class of the day. And so there's a give and take. But ideally, we want to spend time with our kids daily. And an easy way to do that is through family dinners. And family dinners, even if they're for 10 or 15 minutes, just opening up the dialogue with our kids, does not have to be about school at all. And in fact, ideally, it's not about school. It's about something more positive. It's a grind for your child. And one of the games that I love is called Kids Daily Dilemmas. And you can get this on Amazon for about $10. And they're basically dilemmas that kids can find themselves in. And they pick a card out, they read it, or you read it, and you just ask them, what would you do in this case? So it's a fun way to get the dialogue going. So, Krista, I am ready to wrap up. I will just add at the end of the day, although I've shared lots of things with parents, really there's 3 steps that are essential in getting started. 1 is to make sure your child has that designated workspace set up. 2 is to make sure they have an understanding of what their week is going to be like and you preview their daily schedule in the morning. And then 3rd and most important is that we stay positive and we preserve the relationship with our kids. So I'd love to take questions now. Again, if you missed it in the very beginning and you want this ebook, just text 55444 and in the message type in homeschool, one word, and it will be emailed to you. And then next week I will send you my latest one on virtual learning.
Awesome. So we have several. So we have some here. How much? Let's see. We have one. I bought 4 desks, 4 chairs, 4 lamps in March. I just purchased a few stools, a pedal for under the desk. I worry that because I guess there are 4 kids, the parent is worried about the kids getting distracted by each other. So she's looking for ideas.
Sure. So here's the thing. There may be a lot of trial and error. I mean, just kind of like how this was all thrown on us in March, everybody had a period of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I know I experienced that with my own son, my youngest son. And, at first it was kind of like, let's just see what happens. And he was doing homework in his room. And then that didn't work out so well. And so we worked out a different situation because, we're all in this together for the first time. Mm-hmm. So it could be that they don't bother each other and you can set them up in the same room. If they do bother each other, then, you might want to say, let's try this for 2 days and see how it goes. See how, maybe 3 days. And if it's kind of a mess, then you might have to move things around. You might even ask them beforehand, before they even start, what kind of setup do you think is going to be best for you? Where do you think the desks should be situated? How do you think you're going to be most focused? Because often kids have a better sense of their ability to stay focused and where than we do. So I would put the ball in their court, at least in the beginning, and then realize it's not going to be perfect and you might have to switch things up.
So we have another question. How can I set up when I have a preschooler and a 9th grader?
Okay, so here's what you do. The 9th grader needs to have his or her own space, and that shouldn't be that hard to do. However, the preschooler needs to be kept busy. And what I would recommend is setting up stations. I'm not sure if anybody's ever heard of Maria Montessori or Montessori classrooms. It's an instructional practice that's pretty prevalent in the primary grades. And basically, her theory of education is that kids learn by doing and doing different things. So if you walk into a Montessori classroom, there's an art area, and there's an abacus, and there's base 10 blocks for math. There's a math area. There is a reading area that has letter tiles. There's a building area. You can do the same thing for your preschooler, where you say to him or her, okay, let's talk about the areas or the stations that would be fun for you. For most kids this age, there's an arts and crafts area, because if they can do things that require tactile use of their hands, that's better for their fine motor skills. So anything with cutting is good, with the child safety scissors. So I would set up an art area. Ask them if they want a Lego area. Do they want an area to dress up their dolls? Whatever it might be. What I would do is set a timer, set it for like 20 minutes, and let them rotate between centers while your 9th grader is working. And that should keep your younger child busy.
That's great. We have another question, and it's about the same, along the same lines. What about if you have two kiddos in the same class at the same table, because they have a small space?
Yeah, if they have a small space, I would again ask them, how do you want to be situated? And I know that you're thinking like, oh, well, I have no choice. They have to be at the same table. They might come up with, interesting ways. One of them might say, well, I'm going to turn this way and I'm going to have my divider like this. And the other one might say, but I'm going to do it like this. And let them in on it. Ask them, how do you think you guys can be set up best so you're not distracting each other? I would also make sure they have that physical divider. That's super helpful too. And let them know that, look, let's try this for 3 days. If we need to switch, we will. But I want your input on how to make this work for all of us.
Thank you. So there are some questions here that they are more for our student support team. So there's a parent that asks about if there are any plans to help students to have some social life for 11. I guess her son is in 11th grade. So what I would recommend for the parent is send us an email, and we can connect you with our student support team, and they can actually work with you about how to work with your child about socializing. We know that is super important, especially for teenagers. So we want to make sure that and all the parents know that ACPS is committed with all families, and we are going to be here for you and for your family. So you can call the Family and Community Engagement Center, FACE Center, and we can actually connect you or help you to answer more questions. So as a wrap up, do you have any other advice for families?
Sure.
This is Tamika. If I can barge in for a second, there are a couple of questions from Facebook that I'd like to put out there. One of them is from a parent who asked for some suggestions around reconnecting students after breaks. So we know that students won't be online for hours consecutively, and that they'll need to come back to the screen for what we're calling synchronous instruction, live instruction with the teachers. If parents are also working and they can't keep reconnecting the child back to the Zoom sessions, do you have any recommendations for empowering, I guess, students as young as first grade?
You could certainly ask. First grade is a little bit young to say, how will you know it's time to start again? But I think that's a really great question. Kids will come up with all kinds of solutions. Oh, I could set a timer. I could look at my watch, whatever it might be. But I am a huge believer of timers, as I mentioned. So if you have a young child that may not be able to solve that problem on their own, set a timer for however long they have for the break. Say it's 45 minutes or half hour. Set the timer for a half hour. So when the timer goes off, it's the timer telling the child it's time to get back to work. It's not you. And often that takes the emotion out of the request. Because if it's always the parent kind of being the bad guy, like time to start again, and they don't want to do it, it becomes like a power struggle. So if it's the timer going off, it just takes the emotion out of the request to get back online. So I would ask, but if the child's young, I'd probably start with a timer.
Thank you. Another question from Facebook, and this may have been covered earlier, is what supplies, equipment, or other visuals do you recommend being in a student's workspace?
We did talk about this, but it's a really important question. So what I would recommend is, you know, kind of like Krishna was asking before, how do you set it up when you've got lots of kids around? If they can have some type of visual divider, that's helpful. If it's decorated by the child, that's even better. Obviously, they need the basics, like, you know, a good Wi-Fi connection, a comfortable chair. But if you can have a couple of fidgets in there, which I mentioned also, and I'm going to send this to you. If you subscribe to the homeschool book, the new one that I'm going to send out has a list of all the supplies, and these fidget things are in there. I'd give your kids a couple of little fidgets to have in there. I'd print out some doodle notes. I'd make sure that they have an accordion binder labeled with each class so they can put their papers in there. And they also need an assignment notebook. Some schools are supplying these. I'm not sure if Alexandria is or not, but they need a way to write down if they have any homework or what they have to do on a regular basis. So those are the basic things that need to be there. And then an extra bonus would be colored pencils. And these are great ways for kids to take notes and then draw pictures or create boundaries on the doodle notes as they go along.
We have one more question from Facebook that somebody just posted that says, thank you for this information. It's been very helpful. And she said, what supplies, equipment, or other visuals do you recommend being in a student workplace?
That's the one that we just responded to.
Oh, sorry. And
That's
then
okay.
I have another one that says, everything sounds great, but for a family who lives in a small apartment and are more than 2 kids and they're adults too, please share an idea how to set up.
Every place has their own challenges, that's for sure. So if your kids are going to be in a small area, like one room together, that's where I would ask them, how do you think we best set this up? And I mentioned this before, but it's important to talk about again, getting kids buy-in. Because if we as parents go in and say, listen, this is how I'm doing it, it kind of sets us up off on the wrong foot from the beginning. So ideally, we want kids to have a say in how it's set up. So if you have your kitchen area, for example, that you can maybe make it a quieter place, not that everybody's going through it every day, or if there's like a living room or a family room, make sure the TV is off. If you have video game equipment, I would get rid of it, move it out of that room somewhere else, put it in a cabinet so kids can't see it. So if you need to use a room that's also used for something else your child likes, watching TV, playing on their gaming computer, playing video games, you want to make sure that stuff is not visible when you set up their learning space so that they can just be focused on learning and their brain knows this is school, it's not for anything else.
So we have one more question that a parent asked in Spanish. So I'm going to ask the question. The parent is asking, how can I help my child if everything is in English and I don't speak English? Because, you know, that he's new in the country and he was actually in the EL program. So I can actually tell the parent, and I will actually repeat it in Spanish, that we will have teams for EL students that will provide assistance to families to support their child at home with homeworks and with any of the materials that are being sent home. So para la mamá que puso la pregunta acerca de cómo podía ayudar a su niño en las tareas. Las maestras van a estar hablando con usted y se le va a estar proporcionando todo en español para que usted pueda ayudar a su niño en la escuela, y también nos puede llamar al Centro FACE si tiene alguna pregunta. So, thank you so much. I now will let Tenika explain a little bit about our new helpline that we're putting together for and will be launching on Monday. So, Tenika.
Great. Thanks, Tanika. Thanks, Krishna. It was really a pleasure to speak to everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Anne, for joining our parents here at ACPS and providing for so many wonderful strategies and tips. If we could advance the slide, I believe that there is one that gives you a visual about our Virtual Plus helpline. We want to make sure that all of our parents are aware of it, that starting Monday, August 31st, ACPS will have a helpline available for parents. So if you have additional questions about some of the information maybe that was presented here, or other items around technology access, food access, start and end times for your school day, we'll have a team of about 15 staff members who are at the ready and available to answer your questions and connect you to the information that you need. I see that we have someone who raised their hand, so I just want to see if we can address that before we wrap. I'm going to allow this person to talk. Hi, Kadis, did you have a question? Your mic is muted, so if you do have a question, you can share it with us now. If not,
Sorry, it was my mistake. I'm sorry. I don't have
it's okay. Thank you for joining us. But for everyone else, the helpline number will be live and available starting on Monday. We encourage you to reach out to us so that you have all the information that you need to start this school year off on the right foot. I do want to make another plug for some of the workshops that we have coming up. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the foreseeable future, the Family and Community Engagement team at ACPS will be working with other departments in the division to provide sessions like this for parents to make sure that we are all starting strong. Next week, we will have a couple of presentations that are led by the Technology Services team around connecting to our classrooms with the ACPS issued Chromebooks and tablets. We will also have a couple of sessions that are facilitated by our Student Nutrition Services team so that you have all the information that you need about accessing meals starting on September 8th, the first day of school. And finally, we'll also be working with the student support teams and getting you some really important information about how attendance matters in this virtual environment and some ideas on how you can support your student to be fully present during our class time. So that's all the information or updates that I had to share, Krishna.
All right, so we want to thank everybody, and we'll see you on next Tuesday. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.